Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Set the Line podcast. As always, I'm Sam, joined by my co-host Braden.
How we doing, Sam? I heard you had a nice little vacation.
I did just spent a week in the Sunshine State, which let me tell you, going from 80 degrees and sunny every day to 20 degrees and cloudy and snow, it's not a fun transition by any means. And going from sitting by the pool all afternoon drinking alcohol to coming home and working on school, it's not a very fun transition either. So
Yeah, I made the mistake of getting gas in shorts today too, so that was not fun.
That couldn't have been a particularly fun experience.
No, I thought it was going to be a little bit warmer than it actually was.
Yeah, that'll happen. But we have the conference championships for NFL this Sunday, starting things off with the 49ers and the Eagles. And it feels like I always start. So Braden, I'm going to let you kick this off.
Perfect. We got the Eagles at -2.5 and an over-under of 46.5. About what you'd expect with the Eagles being at home. And I have a couple big questions for this game. The first one being for the 49ers, is Brock Purdy's play sustainable? He continues to win games despite having moments where he doesn't look all that great. He's made some rookie mistakes, particularly in that Dallas game last week, where towards the end of the first half, he almost runs out the clock, I think the plan was for him to throw away the passes there to wind down the clock, but he pushed it a little bit close, then ended up getting the field goal off with 1 second left, so it worked out. But it's got to be a little bit worrying there. And then on San Fran's go-ahead touchdown drive, he threw a pass right to Trayvon Diggs, who dropped his first interception of his career, it feels like. Dude who catches everything defensively somehow missed one right to him. And if he throws that interception there, completely different ball game. And I don't know if he's going to be able to get away with those mistakes this week. If he has any, it's going to be tough sledding for the Niners. However, I think that the Niners are going to run the ball a lot. The Eagles are just 24th in rushing yards per attempt allowed. So maybe San Francisco can lean on Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and Elijah Mitchell out of the backfield, something they've done the past couple of games. However, last week the Eagles held Saquon to just 9 carries for 61 yards, and 39 of those yards came on one run. So on his other 8 carries, he averages 2.75 yards per attempt. So a little bit concerning there. And I would be very surprised if Brock Purdy's able to get away with those mistakes again this week.
Yeah, he certainly looked like a rookie quarterback at times last week. And, that's to be expected when you go up against a defense like Dallas and at a stage like this. But, to this point, that was really kind of the only time that we saw him struggle, honestly, I would say. And, we touched on it a little bit in, the first couple of matchups for the 49ers. But this is a scheme that's going to be very, very easy for a rookie quarterback to pick up in when your head coach is Kyle Shanahan and you have all the weapons around him that he does. So, he's going to be able to get away with that at times just because of the supporting cast around him. But with this Eagles secondary and this Eagles defense, I don't think that he's going to be able to afford mistakes like that this week. But my first question actually is, are the 49ers going to be able to stop A.J. Brown? The 49ers have really, really struggled in 3 of their last 4 games against wide receiver ones. Last week against Dallas, CeeDee Lamb had 10 catches for 117 yards. 2 weeks ago in the wild card round, DK Metcalf had 10 catches for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then in week 17 against the Raiders, Devontae Adams had 7 catches for 153 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, if they are able to stop A.J. Brown, they still have to worry about Devontae Smith. They still have to worry about Dallas Goedert. They still have to worry about Quez Watkins. The Eagles have so many guys that can hurt them. And this 49ers secondary, while it's very talented, it is not nearly as good as their run game. So I think that if the Eagles are able to throw the ball with success, especially to A.J. Brown, who was held to 3 catches last week, so you got to figure that they're going to try and get him involved as much as they can in a win-or-go-home type game. So that concerns me a little bit if I'm a 49ers fan. And then the other thing is they need to establish a pass rush. The 49ers really kept Micah Parsons in check last week, and they gave Brock Purdy time to throw. And they still got home, on some downs. But I mean, Hassan Reddick this year has 16 sacks. Javon Hargrave, Josh Sweat, and Brandon Graham all have 11. I mean, if I can crunch the numbers here really quickly, that's 49 sacks between the four of them. If two of those four guys can be disruptive, that's going to make things really tough for Brock Purdy. And in a very, very tough road atmosphere against the best secondary in the NFL, you know, 2 interceptions could very, very well be the difference.
Yeah, going back to what you talked about with the 49ers' inability to defend wide receiver ones, really the Eagles, you can make the argument that they have 2 of them. Whenever A.J. Brown has a down game, it seems like Devontae Smith just explodes. I don't know if there's been one game this year where they both performed below expectation. And, you know, last week, A.J. Brown only 3 catches. Devontae Smith goes for 6 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. He basically dominated that first half. And then in the second half, I think if they needed to throw the ball more, A.J. Brown would have gotten more involved.
Yep.
So I wouldn't read too much into him being held to 3 catches.
No.
But I would be very nervous if I was a 49ers fan. With my secondary, Charvarius Ward has looked really, really shaky these last couple of weeks for the most part. So good luck to San Fran containing both of those guys, let alone one of them.
Yeah, definitely. And then the spread in this one is favoring the Eagles by 2.5. Over-under set at 45.5. I think the Eagles win. You know, they're at home. They get a rookie quarterback. And, you know, we touched on the Eagles secondary is better than any secondary that the 49ers will have faced all season, which is kind of crazy to think about because outside of Darius Slay, there's really nobody that I would say is like a superstar by any means. I could be wrong on that. Maybe that's just my opinion, which is a hot take. But, and you know, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. But
yeah,
really kind of.
Sorry, I was going to say that you could say that Hassan Reddick and James Bradbury are like borderline in that category with how they played this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have like the established reputation to call them superstars, but they've definitely performed that way this year for sure.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, I think the Eagles win. And being a 2.5 point spread, I think they cover. As for the over-under at 45.5, I mean, these are 2 of the best defenses in the NFL. So I feel confident about the under hitting in this one.
Yeah, I also like the Eagles to cover in this one. There is the question of can their style of football work against the 49ers offense? They really love to run the football this year. They run it the 5th most percentage-wise, almost half the time, and then the 3rd most in terms of rush attempts per game, all the way up at 32.7. They're 4th in the NFL in rushing yards, and they just put up 268 on the ground against New York. Jalen Hurts by himself averages just under 11 rush attempts per game. However, the 49ers defense has been extremely, extremely good against the run. They are 2nd in rush yards per attempt allowed at just 3.4, 2nd in rush yards per game allowed, and then 2nd in takeaways. So will Nick Sirianni be able to adapt and, you know, will the Eagles be able to throw the football when needed? Because there's going to be times I think that they're going to have a couple of 3rd and mediums, 3rd and longs that they'll have to convert in the first half and, you know, towards later on in the game as well. But I'm not too worried overall. In Nick Sirianni's short head coaching experience, he's shown he's willing to adjust and kind of change his style of offense when the matchup dictates that. Jalen Hurts had 4 games this year, throwing for over 300 yards. So I think if it comes down to it, he'll be able to throw the ball just fine, and that's why I like the Eagles to cover. I also do like the under, though, just because this is a game where it's going to be very, very tough for Brock Purdy. His first road playoff start, and I think it's going to be tough for the Niners to get maybe more than 17 points, and I don't see the Eagles putting up 30.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, this could be another hot take from me already this episode, but I could see this game being a 27-10 type game. I don't necessarily think that this one's going to be super close. I think that Purdy's going to struggle. So it would not shock me at all if this is not a particularly close game.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Eagles are going to pretty much have their way for most of this one. If they can jump out to a lead early, especially a double-digit lead, it's going to be very, very tough for San Fran to climb out of that hole.
Yep, definitely. And the other game this Sunday, the AFC Championship, the Bengals at the Chiefs. Braden, kick us off.
Well, the Bengals are currently a 1-point favorite. They opened around 3-point underdogs, and then Mahomes' status has been up in the air. So that spread has changed a little bit in favor of Cincinnati now. The over-under is set at 47.5. There's a couple of questions for this one on both sides, and they both relate to Joe Burrow. The first one for Cincinnati, does Joe Burrow have a clutch gene? It might seem like a dumb question since he's already appeared in a Super Bowl. He's won a national championship in college. But in 6 career playoff games in the NFL, He's yet to lead a fourth quarter touchdown drive. He's led a couple of field goal drives to win the games against Tennessee and Kansas City last year, but 0 fourth quarter touchdown drives is a little bit concerning. He hasn't really had to play from behind late in the postseason outside of the Super Bowl last year against the Rams. And there's a chance he'll have to do that on Sunday against the elite Kansas City offense. So while he's been tested in the playoffs, not a whole lot, and wasn't able to lead a comeback drive last year in the Super Bowl, I feel pretty confident in the way he's playing this year. The way the Bengals had just moved the ball down the field basically at will. They performed phenomenally against Buffalo last week after kind of a shaky performance against the Ravens in the wild card round. So if it comes down to a situation where the Bengals are down maybe 4 or 5 points late and Joe Burrow has the ball to try to lead a game-winning touchdown drive, I would feel pretty comfortable in him leading them to victory.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this is a Bengals team who's probably, if not the hottest teams in the NFL right now. And that is in large part due to their quarterback in Joe Burrow, as you mentioned. I mean, he's been, especially late, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, he has, I don't think, an interception so far this postseason. He's never lost to the Chiefs. Beat them this year, 27-24. Had 286 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. And he's looked incredibly solid all season outside of that very first week 1 game against the Steelers where he threw 4 interceptions. But I feel confident that you can call that a fluke.
I agree.
Yeah,
I feel like Joe Burrow is at least a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now.
yes. Yep.
I don't know if you'd consider that a hot take or not. I don't think many people would with the way he's played recently. But we don't see a whole lot of young quarterbacks ascend to this level of stardom this quickly. Pat Mahomes obviously did it in basically his first year as a starting quarterback. And then Josh Allen took a little bit longer, but he got there within like year 3 or 4. But Joe Burrow is just on another level right now.
Yeah, I would not call that a hot take at all. And honestly, I wouldn't even think it's crazy going as far as top 3. I mean, behind Mahomes and probably Josh Allen, I don't know that there's a quarterback better than Joe Burrow right now.
Yeah, and I feel like there's even a debate between Burrow and Allen at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I might still go with Allen just because of his rushing ability. Not that Joe Burrow can't run, but it's very, very close. And the fact that it's considered a toss-up after Allen was viewed as being, at least a tier ahead of Burrow going into the season is kind of wild.
Yeah, and I mean, Joe Burrow's whole story is just incredible. I mean, going from riding the bench at Ohio State to maybe the best college football season we've ever seen at LSU to the number 1 pick, tearing his ACL his rookie season to leading his team to an AFC championship and a Super Bowl appearance in year 2. I mean, it's unbelievable what he's been able to do.
He's also a great Pledge of Allegiance leader. I don't know if you've seen that video.
Yes, I have. That's certainly accurate. My question going into this game, though, for Kansas City is, I think that the Bengals are certainly going to have success throwing the ball just with how many weapons they have. And I mean, the Chiefs' pass defense is certainly not elite by any means, but can their pass rush be effective? The Bengals are down 4 linemen. I mean, I don't know if all 4 are going to be out, but all 4 are certainly going to be banged up. They only had 2 sacks last week against the Jaguars. And outside of Chris Jones, who had 15.5 sacks this season, their second leading pass rusher is rookie George Karlaftis with 6 sacks. So, I mean, there's really not been a whole lot of pass rush generated. I think if they want to have success defensively in this game, getting pressure on Joe Burrow is going to be huge, and giving him as little time to throw the ball as possible, I think that's going to be massive and can make a massive difference in this game. And then offensively for Kansas City, I think regardless of the health of Patrick Mahomes, I think they need to run the ball effectively. The Bengals just shut down the Bills' run game completely last week. I think Singletary and James Cook had a combined 11 carries for 37 yards or something in that ballpark. And I would go as far as saying that if Isaiah Pacheco doesn't have the game that he has last week, I'm not convinced that the Chiefs win that game because it turned out to only be a 7-point game. And I mean, he went for, I think, 8 yards per carry. And on that 98-yard touchdown drive, he was probably the most important player on it. So without him, I truly don't think that the Chiefs win that game. I think that he's going to need to play a very big role this week if the Chiefs want to get back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, especially, with the Bengals, they've been pretty good at shutting down tight ends all season. And that's clearly, the Chiefs' number 1 passing option with Travis Kelce. Yep. So if Kelce's limited at all by the Bengals defense, you got to figure that they're going to lean on the run pretty heavily, let alone with Mahomes having his banged up ankle. I assume he'll be a full go because he came back into the game last week.
Yeah.
But if he's hampered by it even a little bit, it's going to be very, very tough for Kansas City to rely on Mahomes trying to throw complex routes to wide receivers that are average to slightly above average at best. So expect a heavy dose of Pacheco on the ground and maybe some shorter passes to Jerick McKinnon, I would think.
Yeah.
And then touching back on the defensive side of things, I think that they absolutely have to sack Burrow at least 3 times on Sunday if they want to take down Cincinnati. Chris Jones has had a great regular season, but in his career, he actually has 0 playoff sacks in 13 games. Meanwhile, Frank Clark, who has been viewed as kind of a disappointment in Kansas City for the most part, he was brought in for a first-round pick a couple of years back, but he's like top 5 in playoff sacks all time somehow, which
Wow.
I would not have thought if I didn't see it on Twitter earlier today. So
I did not know that.
Yeah. So if Kansas City can get to Burrow at least 3 times, I like their chances of keeping it very close. And I think that I might still take the Bengals to win this one. I think the Chiefs I would take the Chiefs if we had a fully healthy Mahomes, but the fact that he's even a little bit banged up kind of scares me. And with it only being a 1-point spread, the Bengals have already won in Arrowhead before for the AFC Championship last year. They beat them in Arrowhead in the regular season too last year. They just seem to have the Chiefs' number. So I'm going to go with the Bengals in this one. And I think I would slightly lean the over, but it's not something I would really want to bet.
Yeah, I'm with you on Cincinnati winning. And I would take the over as well. I mean, neither of these two defenses really jumps off the page at you, especially Kansas City's their run defense is very solid, but the primary threat of Cincinnati's offense, as good as Joe Mixon is not the run game. It's Joe Burrow and the plethora of wide receivers and tight ends and receiving backs, honestly, too, that they have. I mean, they've got 7 guys that can have success on you out of the backfield or, running routes or whatever it may be.
Right. The one notable stat I would have with the over-under is that both teams had games go under 47.5 last week. The Chiefs was exactly 47, though, so I don't put a whole lot of stock into that. And then the Bengals one was in a snowstorm. So yeah, I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue going into this week. I think that's probably a little bit baked into the line. So maybe you're getting a little bit of value there.
Yeah, and I mean, the game earlier this season had 51 points scored, but that was with a fully healthy Mahomes. So
right.
That could very well be different. But yeah, I'm with you on that for sure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we've got. A little short but sweet episode for you guys. Hope you enjoyed. It's going to be a good weekend of football, and we will catch you in the next one.
Adios.